speaker is Abizer Diwanji, who is a partner at EY and a financial service leader.
Thank you for getting me here.
Okay, so just getting right into it, a few questions which all CS students want to know from you. Okay, that what are the key responsibilities of a company secretary in the context of insolvency and as an insolvency professional?
So very clearly, the first thing that ever an insolvency professional does is actually run a business.
Okay.
And he runs a company. And when you have to run a company, I think one of the most critical aspects of running a company is actually knowing how companies are run. Okay. And what are the nuances of the company's law that one needs to adhere to. Because when you're running a company, it's also very important that you understand the various governances around the Companies Act. And I think that the company law profession or CS profession actually understands what are the reasons why certain rules are formed. And I think your understanding of those rules will go a long way in making sure that the companies are run in a compliant manner.
What is the recent and emerging trends and strategies to identify early detection of insolvency and avoid insolvency or bankruptcy?
So, you very rightly put, Jahangir, I think one of the things that you did mention is the fact that you have to avoid insolvencies. Now, the law of insolvency is meant to be a stick, which is just shown rather than a stick which is landed on somebody's head.
Okay.
And hence it's important, as you rightly said, avoid insolvency. But the indicators which lead you to believe that a company is likely to go into a potential insolvency are many. And the law will be most effective only when there is an early detection and an early resolution of insolvencies. So, for example, if you and we saw it with the lag that came in 2016 and 2017, when a lot of companies that were admitted to insolvency, and if you look at the statistics, companies have not been able to yield that much of a value in insolvency. And why is that the case? That's the case because these companies went through a lot of lag before the insolvency within them was identified. Can't blame anybody because the law was such. The law came in 2016 and the rot in the banking system was happening from much before.
Okay.
But if an insolvency is identified at an early stage, okay, the ability to revive it, the ability to make sure that we're able to come with a good, sustainable resolution and to retain value for every stakeholder is very high. So what are the signs of early detection? So many. The biggest trigger of invoking the insolvency law is actually a sign of default. Whenever there is a default in a given payment, whether it is a creditor payment, a financial creditor payment, or an operational creditor payment. Now, by the way, default in itself, in my opinion, is very, very late a stage when insolvency is identified.
Okay.
Insolvency could be identified in many things. One, you look at the cash flow of a company and you figure out that the cash flows of the company are not in sync with the financial results portrayed by the company.
Okay.
A very big indicator to tell you that if the underlying cash is not there, the company is going to face stress at some stage. Now, you could be having a great business. You could be making a lot of money. But if you're severely indebted and the debt is not sustainable on that balance sheet, it is insolvency indication.
Okay.
Second is, if you look at a situation where a business model is undergoing significant change. I'll give an example. Vodafone. Vodafone is not a company which is insolvent because it actually defaulted on payments in a willful manner.
Okay.
Jio came, acquired their business, took over, changed the rules of the game, and Vodafone was too late for it to recover. Hence, it went into insolvency. So things will happen for different reasons. But the biggest definition I would say is when you find a good business in a bad balance sheet, then you know that there are signs of insolvency.
What are the different kinds of restructuring that are commonly used or the most effective in insolvency cases, some turnarounds. After a company falls into insolvency, what are the strategies to turn around and bring it back into profitability, or what are the way forward?
So this is, this is what I think is the most important role of any insolvency professional or anybody who's trying to turn around a business.
Okay.
First of all, when a company is at a stage of default or at a stage of insolvency or a stage of where there is trouble, the creditors are irate. They are a very irate lot of people because they are upset that their dues are not regular if already defaulted. Then the second issue is that shareholders are upset because they obviously not got the returns. The suppliers are upset because they don't get their payments on time. And the employees are upset because they don't see career prospects. So here you are in the middle of all these people who are terribly upset, and you're trying to come and turn around a business back to profitability. It's a tough job.
Yes.
So what do you do for it? First thing, at least the law offers, and that's the good thing that the law offers. The law offers a moratorium. Exactly. It tells everybody else, stay quiet. We will prioritize what we need to do. We will first run the business as it has to be run today. So all your past dues can stay. So that's an important thing. The law says it, but even in a turnaround situation, you should prioritize your payments. What's your most important field today? Your supplies should go on, your machinery should work, your factory should deliver economic value. Okay. And as long as you keep delivering economic value, you will maintain enterprise value. And as you maintain enterprise value, your company will turn around. But to maintain enterprise value requires too many things. So you have to make sure your employees get paid a minimum on time, with a promise that they will get more if the company benefits more. Okay. We have to try and defer their payouts and link it to the survival of the company.
Got it.
Similarly, with suppliers, you tell them there are very critical supplies that I will have to do first, because if I don't make those critical supplies, the company will close down. And if the company closes down, even the non-critical supplies won't have. Okay. So how does anybody benefit? The third thing is to keep the economic activity going. Now, economic activity going is tough. I'll give you an example, DHFL. Mm-hmm. When we ran DHFL, the most important thing for us was to make sure that the company was in the business of giving housing loans and collecting money. Is in the business of giving housing loans and collecting money. Its employees on the field are busy. Its employees in the offices are doing the administrative work. And the company on a net basis is churning out cash and adding value. Okay. We curtail the activity significantly because we had less money. That's fine. But the activity was on. Okay. Because what happens is, I'm just taking an example of a financial services business. If you stop your focus on collecting from people, people will stop paying you. And the people stop paying you, then anyway you go down. Okay. If you don't give newer loans, then your staff gets demotivated, then the best people leave and outside and look for other jobs. So you have to continue giving loans, and only when you give loans will you collect loans well. That's the philosophy. Similarly, when you work in a factory, it's very important that you keep the plant and machinery going. You keep your employees going. And we, by the way, did it even in COVID times. Okay. The important thing is, unless you keep the enterprise going, you cannot get an enterprise value. And the recovery in insolvency or any other turnaround is to recover the economic enterprise and not to recover the value of the assets that the enterprise owns. Because almost always the value of the enterprise, or the value of the assets that an enterprise owns, is equal to the scrap value of the assets. Okay. But when the assets actually turn around and generate economic value, the assets realize enterprise value. And enterprise value is always a better recovery and a better realization than asset realization.
Okay. So some of the successful turnaround strategies, if you can share, like in the recent past as a case study, which we could, the students could refer.
Yeah, so I will tell you a couple of companies. Now, some in insolvency, some not in insolvency, but I'd like to touch upon that. Okay. So there is this interesting company. It was into automotive spare parts. I will not name some companies where I come. But DHFL was out in the open, so I can talk about it. But there's this company which was in the automotive parts, largest supplier to Tata Motors. Tata Motors had a bit of a slack down, curtailed its supplies, and they had built a new plant just for Tata Motors.
Okay.
So they incurred a lot of capital expenditure. The plant was up and running, but Tata Motors decided to reduce the level of supply. So now the capex is incurred,
Okay.
the opex is incurred, people are there, but the offtake is reduced. That clearly impacted them.
Okay.
Now the company had taken slightly high cost loans from NBFCs at 16 and 18%. And they had to service those loans. And it was almost impossible to service the loans when the cash flows had dried down. So the one thing that the company did is it actually approached Tata's finance company.
Okay.
And told them, listen, I am a very critical supplier for Tata Motors, and I understand that Tata Motors today is not in a position to take my offtake. But I have discussed with Tata Motors, and a year and a half down, there is going to be a significant effort in terms of Tata Motors turnover going up and the supply has been resuming, and I will then, in the meantime, be an uninterrupted supplier to Tata Motors.
Okay.
And at the same time, but Tata Motors has to help me out. So we said, okay, how do we help you out? Good. That's when kind of we came in and we did a strategy on a turnaround strategy on the financial side.
Okay.
So there's either a financial strategy or an operational improvement. You could do either. So on the financial side, what we did is we moved the whole debt off balance sheet. How do you move it off balance sheet? We told Tata's, you come and put in a compulsorily convertible debenture to refinance part of the 16% loan. They did that. When they did that, the money that came in with it increased the capital because, as you all know, company secretaries, convertible, fully convertible, compulsory convertible debentures is equal to equity.
Correct.
So the company's equity base went up.
Okay.
When the company's equity base went up, the company's credit rating went up.
Got it.
Because capital went up. When the credit rating went up, 50% of the loan was refinanced by this compulsorily convertible debenture. The balance 50%, we went to a bank and raised money at 8.5% or 9%.
Okay. So since the rating
So
was high,
16% cost came down to 9%, and the repayment got deferred to 1.5 years later when we knew the cash flows were going to come.
okay.
Cost of fund half,
Yes.
cash flow commitment deferred. Now what did we do? How did we move it off balance sheet? The promoters gave an assurance to Tata Motors
Okay.
that if you reach a stage when you have to compulsorily convert these debentures, we will purchase those debentures off you.
Okay.
So for Tata's, it was like a non-convertible debenture because it was to be sold anyway. You have to get the money back. For the balance sheet of the company, it was a convertible debenture, and hence enhance the capital and improve the credit rating and reduce the cost of funds.
Awesome.
And the overall refinancing deferred the repayment by a year and a half.
Okay. Very
By the way, a year and a half later, today,
yes.
that company is a AA rated company.
Oh, lovely.
Has fully paid back, bought back Tata CCDs through personal financing of the promoters, and has refinanced all its loans away to banks at 8.5% fully.
Oh, very nice.
So that's the example of a financial restructure.
Got it.
On the operational restructuring, we did a little bit of it in DHFL and we did a lot of it in Shrey. So Shrey, as some of you may know, CS is quite popular in Calcutta, so I'm sure a lot of people are from Calcutta here. So in Shrey, the issues on the operational side were that, first of all, we had far too many people in the company and far too accounts because the accounts were on a slide down. We didn't have money to lend. So there was a huge rationalization in terms of making sure that we right-size the accounts with the right kind of people. And we set up a small group, which was a distress turnaround group within the bank, within Shrey, which only looked at negotiating collections.
Got it.
So we put, as you said, slightly stricter, slightly strong-headed people in there, identified from the group. Some of them were sacked who were doing regular work. But some people who were milder were put into account maintenance. And we moved a lot of the collections people into actually coming and collecting money for us. And we improved monthly collections from 250, 300 crores to around 500 crores.
Okay, nice.
So that also happens. So what we did there was that we didn't want to sack everybody immediately, but we reassigned responsibilities to make sure that we were going to make, enough money out of it.
Okay.
So I think the various strategies, as they say, restructuring is called causes for horses. What I tell you may be completely different from what you will experience. So what we want each of you to do is, and the skill of the profession doesn't follow rules, right? Professions follows minds of people, minds of professionals. And those professionals have to think through within a framework as to what they can do for their companies. And you will end up with completely different solutions. Every time it's bespoke. And that's the fun of it. So you use your brains more than what other people have done and assess every situation, because what I do may not be applicable to what you do.
Correct. Each case is different.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the fun.
Oh, that's lovely, sir. Okay. And so just as a guidance from your end, in your opinion, what are some of the key skills and qualities that a company secretary as an insolvency professional to become successful as an IP should possess? Okay.
So I'll tell you one thing. It is not the knowledge of the law.
Not the knowledge of the law.
Absolutely not. Okay. It's very important that you have a working knowledge of the law, because you will have a plethora of lawyers advising you on it. Don't worry about it. That's not your skill. There are enough lawyers who will tell you what to do. You have to just make sure that you listen to the right advice of the right lawyer. That's a skill you need to have.
Okay.
Every lawyer will tell you to let's hit the court and let's fight the case out and we have a great chance. I don't know how many of you have seen Munna Bhai.
I know, yes.
But be careful. So you need to just have the common sense to make sure that you take the right advice at the right time. Otherwise, your real skill is that of an interpersonal skill.
Agreed.
How you manage people. As I said, all your stakeholders are irate. All your stakeholders are upset. How you manage the stakeholders and take them into confidence of what actions you want to take, including an existing promoter who's not been allowed to enter his own company.
Okay.
And that would actually determine how your ability to manage the company. So, for example, with a existing promoter, be considerate to the fact that he has lost his company. Don't give in to him, but be considerate. Make him understand that you're running an insolvency process, which is mandated by law. There is nothing personal about anybody. Similarly, approach your bankers. Your bankers will be, sometimes when you deal with the bankers, you will find that the people who attend your committee of creditor meetings are simply following instructions. Try and meet more senior bankers who will understand from you what the situation of the enterprise is and how you should be acting. Meet with all the creditors. Address workers. We have done that. We actually addressed workers' gatherings at factories. Okay. Visited every factory, met everybody, understood their problems. First thing that they do is they will shout back at you, the workers, because you can understand the frustrations. They've not been able to take salaries back for 6 and 8 months. Okay. Take that in your stride. And then explain to them that unless you're able to revive the organization, how the hell will you ever get paid? But also tell them that I will release you enough money so that you're not in a desperate situation. I will not release all your money. Please come back and let the organization prosper, and you shall prosper along with the organization. Similarly, tell your creditors that whoever is most critical for running the organization, I shall pay you, but I can assure you that there is a significant effort that I will put in to make sure that you recover the maximum that is possible. You have to win their confidence. And a lot of it is your interpersonal skill. So the biggest skill you need to have is interpersonal skill. How to deal with people on a day-to-day basis. You are the manager, you are the CEO of the company during the period of the insolvency process. And many people say, the creditors are too heavy on us and they come and, push us a lot. it also shows that you don't have the ability to manage those creditors.
Correct.
If you had the ability to manage those creditors well, you would have. And we had initially in the initial phases of insolvency, forget creditors, there were a lot of issues around employees doing dharnas.
Okay.
There were people coming and trying to hit an RP. Those are gone now because RPs have understood how to manage power. So I think a lot of it is interpersonal, and if you develop that skill to a very nice extent, you will be able to make sure things work. Because every promoter, when he tries to do a revival, comes with a baggage which people don't want to trust him on.
Okay.
But you don't come with a baggage. So you have a much open and bigger field to do things. How many times, tell me, have we as professionals, you as CS professionals, I'm a chartered accountant, have got the ability to manage enterprise, to deal with unions, to deal with creditors, take them head on and say, no, this is how I believe a business has to be run. It's very exciting. Provided you have a knack for it and you like this kind of. Now come to, we just did a resolution of a company called Reliance Home.
Okay.
So this is a home finance company belonging to Anil Ambani group of companies. Okay. And that RBI refused to take it under the insolvency and bankruptcy code. And here was a situation where the lenders signed something called an intercreditor agreement. There is a Reserve Bank of India format, which says that you can have an intercreditor agreement and then you can do a resolution. But the intercreditor agreement has one big flaw. No RBI, Reserve Bank of India, can never impose a particular course of action on a creditor, on a banker. So we had every banker going irate. Okay. Whenever we wanted to take a decision, two bankers would not agree. And then we found a buyer for the business. The buyer said, listen, I don't want to have a situation where two buyers are not agreeing. Two bankers are not agreeing. Because how will I deal with those bankers? So we agreed on a 27% haircut for everybody. And we got a buyer. Okay. And at the last moment, we had two bankers who said, we don't agree with this concept. And the kind of lobby we had to do with those two bankers, because, the effort actually went to their offices. I had a number of breakfasts with those guys. And just to tell him and at the end of it, one of the bankers had told him that if you don't believe the number is 27%, you give me your number. And he said, no, it should be near 35% recovery. I said, do one thing. At 30% recovery, I'll get all bankers to sign up and sell to you. Are you willing to buy? Okay. You make 5% per banker as a profit. And he sat back after some time, one or two meetings, and he's telling me, my committee is not approving it. I said, well, if your committee is not approving it, then you accept what is on the table. And finally, after at least a year and a half of negotiation, this company actually turned around. So I think that, the power of IBC is what I realized in this meeting. It's so immense that, you can actually drag people, and as long as you have a 66% approval, take it. Secondly, IBC actually protects a lot of, post-acquisition events. Like you're not responsible in the company for any past events of the company. So if you want to buy, then it's easier to buy a company because you know that you're getting a clean slate. But if you look at non-IBC, these people refuse to buy the company. So no, this company has lots of litigation, Mr. Ambani is involved, blah, blah, blah. We will only take over the assets of the company and pay you cash. So they bought our assets and paid us cash. Okay. Then when the cash comes into the company, the big issue is that the company's existing board is not in suspension as it is in IBC. So the board was existing and we needed the board's permission to pay the creditors. Okay. These small things come into the way. And then you realize that IBC is such a boon in that sense. And you have to deal with such small problems. So, again, what happens in most restructurings, and you have to be conscious of it, is when you're near the end, one or two people will try and create a problem to get some kind of a last mile advantage because everybody is already pregnant. Correct? And IBC actually binds these people to a 66% vote. Non-IBC, it becomes extremely difficult to deal with these kind of situations. And by the way, all this time, in the year and a half, on a book of around 4,000 crores, we collected 2,500 crores of cash.
Oh.
So operations were on. At the same time, negotiations were on with creditors. So it's stressful. But believe me, at the end of the stress, you come out to be a very, very different professional than what you started out to be.
Okay, that's great. If anyone
audience questions anytime.
Priya, and I'm currently pursuing graduate insolvency program, fourth batch. So, sir, my question is to Mr. Diwanji. So, sir, you must have come across through CS professionals who have entered the insolvency domain after the 10 years of experience. And through GIP, there's a shortcut. We can enter the ecosystem within 2 years. So, what is the silver lining? And how is your experience dealing with both the kind of professionals, both kind of professionals?
So I must tell you one thing. While you are eligible to be an insolvency professional at the end of 2 years, there are no shortcuts in life.
Right.
Yeah, you have to learn and climb the ropes by actually gaining real experience by working.
Right.
So what will happen is, because you are actually an insolvency professional, you would get better opportunities to work on complex situations. So a very prominent, CS professional to my mind is Mamta Benani and Sumit Benani. Right? And Mamta Benani is the first lady insolvency professional that we have. And you see her career path and what she has done, the kind of company she has done. Now, it's the load of experience that she had is what actually gets reflected in what she does. So I think her CS knowledge has clearly helped because of the compliance bent of mind that she had. But her entrepreneurial bent of mind is actually what got her to be more successful. And entrepreneurial bent of mind comes with a fair amount of time and experience. So I would urge all of you that look at it as a profession where you will learn the ropes of business. You will enter a different track from a compliance track, and you will build yourselves very differently as a professional. And that, I believe, is a bigger advantage than taking a 2-year shortcut and becoming an RP, which you will become. It's no problem. And you may end up doing smaller jobs, but I would rather you to do some larger jobs and understand how these things are run. This would be my recommendation to all students.